Hello dear viewers, welcome back to a Goosebumps HorrorTown playthrough of sorts. Well, not really. This is a review to Be Afraid, Be Very Afraid. The long-awaited overdue one. I apologize. Things have been getting a little bit crazier on my schedule, but hopefully I'll be able to manage at some point. Try to keep it in mind. I am hopefully will be able to communicate better with you guys in some way, shape, or form, but until then, we're gonna have to deal with this. But let's go ahead and start what we usually do. Let's start with our plot. It seems like two TV hosts of HTTV has taken over as narrators during this event. The town has had enough and decided to hold an election to see who would be their new mayor of HorrorTown. However, during a yard sale held by Mr.Zarwid, Connor decided to take a new card game from Zarwid called Be Afraid. This results in unleashing chaos, and now the whole town is forced to play this wicked game. For Slappy, however, this chaos may be finally the time to get what he wanted most, being the king of HorrorTown. Some interesting facts with this is the fact that this is the first 4th of July Independence Day kind of event, and it has a bit of a D&D or Dungeons & Dragons feel to it. This is based off of the book Be Afraid, Be Very Afraid. This update finally also unlocked the special book option for us, finally, and with a bit of my influence into the game, community members were now into this game's lore as narrators. Maybe future we might be seeing them walk around, but until then, not the case. This started July 16th and ended August 9th at 8 p.m. EDT. I know and realize that it says the 10th on here, but as we all come to expect by now, I always seem to screw up the date. So what is up with the Be Afraid, Be Very Afraid? Is it a game worth playing, or are we going to bow down to the dummy? Well, let's start off as we usually do by looking at the positives to this event. Although technically not an addition per se with the actual event itself, I'm happy to say finally we've gotten the special book. After what seemed like almost 2 years, we finally got to see this thing in action, and the way they're implementing it is alright for now. I've been told through the ether that they're looking into changing it to be a bit better, but as of right now, they were just making it work to see if this whole thing works first. So once that whole thing is down, they're probably going to be fixing it and fine-tuning it a bit. As of now, for premium or people who played through events before, it's not the great deal. But if you're new and you missed it, this is probably the best thing to do. And I am hoping to make some videos about the special books more clearly. But what I will tell you is that this next they probably will have a part 0 talking more about the special books, but these are things that will be staying. I have to say that the story of this event was well done. I enjoyed reading the text of it. I love the lore building from it. I love the fact that they seem to have gotten some mannerisms down. And I certainly love the whole angle of making this into a political-esque event. And like every politics, all the candidates are all crap in their own special way. And although I had to kind of vaguely hold things off and put warnings on them because, of course, Ellie's getting involvement seemed to have gotten itself using a certain word, I want to keep it as apolitical as possible, but hey, I'll make it a pass because, again, politics bring out the worst in people. Despite the fact that Sparkles the Dragon, the event spawn scene, seems to be a bit of a coin flip as far as the 50-50 getting the Emperor card that he drops, I will say that I love this thing's animation, and it's pretty fun to see it roaming around doing all this stuff. Again, the animators killed it when it came to getting the characteristics of this thing around, and quite frankly, I love the little home he comes in. It'll be nice to see this thing kind of keep a mainstay at HorrorTown at some point in the future, but for now, we have him in our memories. Something I theorized back in the last update that has now come confirmed in this one is the fact that they are now reusing certain characters that are from other main stories into this one and releasing them to an earlier access kind of deal. In this case, Emily being a part of the story because of the fact that she's mentioned in the book, or a Emily of sorts. I do appreciate the fact that not only did they make Emily really useful as far as drops and stuff items go, but I really did like her character development within the story. So much so that I actually really think that she was probably one of the highlights of this update. Despite the fact that she is a character that most people by this point probably would have her, but if you're new to the game, you would be able to get her a little bit quicker than normal. And of course, because I'm very biased, I've decided to say that my favorite part of this event is the fact that I got included into the game. Well, that and Erasmo, in this case. The TV hosts NPCs were just really fun to read, and I really enjoy these two as certain characters of the game. And honestly, it was an honor to be somewhat my persona to be based off of one of these characters. And the fact that the actual developers are putting community people into the game is quite an honor in some cases. Yes, I know it's a free-to-play mobile game, but still, they didn't have to do it this way. They could have just simply put a little nod or something, but no, they instead remade a character of my likeness, and I am forever immortalized into the game now. I am part of the lore. Whenever the light comes into the darkness, as so with any good comes the bad. Although the items that were available this time around were unique in some cases as far as the designs go, the unfortunate thing about them is that they're only unique. That meaning that you're only able to buy them once. So once you buy them, the currency that you get is no longer useful. There's only one item in particular you can buy multiple of, and that's the stairs. And honestly, there's not much you can do with stairs. They're not like walls or little decorations of sorts that you can decorate around your town. Now, these ugly things are just kind of there, and it's kind of a nuisance in some cases and forms. So, unfortunately, the items kind of suffer for it because of it. The crafting materials this time around seems to be a bit annoying for the most part of what they've been asking and questioning for. Namely, when I talk about this, I'm referring to the fact that only one item is needed, in particular a item that is costing a lot, which again we'll be mentioning a bit more later on down this list. But needless to say, you need all three scenes to make one particular item, and then that card is useful for certain things, and it makes it kind of annoying because it takes a while to actually move on with this game. I understand that the game wants to try to balance the whole making things a bit difficult, but also fair at the same time, so I understand this limitation thing when it comes to what value you can get and what... Like, again, they're playing with the meta of this whole thing and the economy, so I will not give it credit for... knock at points for that type of stuff, but frankly, to tell you the truth, they have to do a better job at this. You know, the last time of the event, we had a scene that cost high, but in my theory was somewhat worth it. Now we have another scene that is really high price, and in my opinion, not worth it. The reason I say this is because it is 1,000 more of the currency, and the price it comes with is something of an incredible sort of scene. Lackluster is the best way to describe it. Again, I don't mind the look. I do like them giving it a little bit of a unique kind of horror slash goblin slash kind of weird avatar alien monster type of character, but at the same time, I really don't think that the price is worth what it's been asking for. Again, it might be its own way of trying to figure out a balancing act, but again, in my personal opinion, I think it was a way bit high for what it was known to have. Let's talk about the new characters, shall we? These characters just suck. All of them do. First, let's talk about the character you can buy with hard currency, Connor. He is not worth the price he's asking for. He doesn't drop anything useful that is justified to have him. And worst of all, his character in the story is absolutely garbage. There is no character development with him. There's nothing unique about him. He looks interesting, but he kind of resembles that of a Billy Deep look. And I don't know if this was purpose or not, but it seemed almost to the point where this kid just, what was it? Like, why was he here? I'm hoping maybe in the future they might redeem this character and actually give him a better personality and story, but this story did not do him justice. And then let's talk about the unique character, that being Zarwid. Zarwid, for the most part, he does is useful just dropping you the monster card to make it a lot more easier for the most part, but my god. I don't know what it is with him, but he just really irks me for the most part. The animations are fine, don't get me wrong, and his quest lines is okay for the most part, but why on earth did they make it his quest line just to spoil everything about this? It's just so baffling. It got to the point where I ended up finding out a twist to the story that would have been nice to get to without actually getting spoiled by it. It makes me kind of wish that we'd have something that was back in like last year when, say, for example, the Body Squeezers Revolution, where the story would stop midway and only continue once you get to a certain point. That way it would follow with the story. It would have worked better in this case if that was the point, but unfortunately that didn't happen, so we got spoiled ahead of time. Hell, even it's the quest line in the book spoiled it too. Let's not mention the fact that you not only need Connor, but also Zarwid, who is a unique character, in order to unlock the book, which is kind of crap for the most part. The only good thing about the book, I will say, is that it'll give you the opportunity to get one item cheaper without having to spend the event currency, but at the same time, you could probably do without it. Now, you would think that the characters would be the worst on this list, but oh no. I saved the worst for last. This questline, in particular, was the worst decision they've made thus far. It almost pissed me off. As I began to explain back in my Crafting 101, I simply told people that there's no way any normal free-to-play player will be able to get the unique item or the prize without having to spend some sort of the either hard currency or actual real money in order to get characters that would help them out. And the fact that they locked this whole thing behind this certain, I wouldn't call it a paywall, but like I stated in when part 4 came out, this literally made me remind me of the quest from Please Don't Feed the Vampires, where they literally just say, screw you, you gotta buy this high price thing that there's no way in heck you're going to be able to do. And then that just irked me so many times. I get what they were trying to do here, but why would you design it in a way that makes it gives an insult to people who play this game? And that was my main point about it, of why it ticked me off. And then what really ticked me off too was that after you're done, if you just manage to be able to get the prize before this whole thing happened, then you'll get a new task by the mayor that makes it absolutely worthless, and like, why even bother at that point? Like, you give this huge juicy twist that people would love to read, and then you give her a task that literally is useless once you get to this point, because once you unlock this item, the actual horror throne, it is like you got everything else. So literally after that, it should have just ended right then and there. Now, that being said, don't get me the wrong way. I'm not saying the grand prize itself is bad. I like the design of it. I think it looks kind of cool, and I love what they were trying to go with it. I just dislike this whole quest layout, especially near the end. Please do not do this again. At least if you do it again, do it properly, or have it be the final, like, hooray, this is the last thing you need to do, and then that's it. If you did it like that, maybe it would be less crappy. But at the end of the day, that is not what they did, and it suffered for it. At the end of the day, this is what the card looks like, and quite frankly, it's not that pleasant to look at. The good and the bad somewhat mixed up percent, and honestly, I wouldn't feel much of blame for you to feel differently. Normally by this point I will tell you exactly what was this better at and what's this worse at, but I'm going to do something a little bit interesting and new this time moving forward. I'm just going to get right to the point in overall my personal thoughts. I've talked to many different people and they claim that this is the worst event for them this year. And I can certainly see why it is, and I can agree with them in some parts. This is certainly not the best event thus far. In fact, it's pretty low on the list. However, it isn't the worst one. That dishonor goes to the second anniversary update, that being it came from the internet. The only reason that being the case is because the scene item requires a unique character and buying $5 in order to get said character. The characters themselves, although useful and interesting for the most part, are a bit, how do we say, hit and miss when it comes to some of the stuff. The story was all over the place as far as how it was written, and it felt very disorganized with everything not being fully complete. It felt half-finished, let's put it that way. That is the only reason this is not the worst event, because this one was half done, while this one is at least fully finished. I will give it credit where credit is due. There were certain things about this update that they did well. The fact that having Emily come back as a unique, like not a unique character, but actual event character that actually helps you as a freemium, really good job. Being able to have certain things come back, good job. The 50-50, that's kind of crappy, but for the most part, it's doable, right? But everything else in the bad really hold it down, and it's a lot worse than others I would agree with. And it's that reason that this event held the Middle of the Road award, as it's placed 9 out of 18. Now at this point of this story, I would be going like, oh, please don't let the next event be, I would be like, oh no, the anniversary to the Please Don't Feed the Vampires coming out, and I'm just going to be like, oh no, right? Upset. But at the point where this is being uploaded, it's already the end of the next update, and quite frankly, I'm happy to say things are going to go up from here. It's very bizarre how we're going from way downhill to way up high. You'll see what I mean in the next update when we take a look at Event 19. So I hope you join me when we get to there, and you'll see why I like this next one popping in. So until then, I've been Grim, and I'll be seeing you next time until Goosebumps HorrorTown has for us in store. Now, the game is done. The cards have been put into place. It is time for rest.